Hey, we already got a reaction. I like. Welcome everybody to the Living in Portland, Oregon live Q&A. We are coming to you every single Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific to answer any questions you have about moving, relocating, or just living here in Portland, Oregon. So we open this up to you. If you're not catching this live, make sure you are subscribing to this channel to learn everything about what it's like to work, eat, sleep, live, play right here in Portland. And so you don't miss any of these live events. Again, we are going live every single Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific to answer any questions that you have. It's been a crazy year. It's gonna, continue going like that. And you're just wanting to know what it's like to really live here, certain areas. So we open up the floor to that. I see a few of you out there. If you can just comment, let us know that you can see us, you can hear us. With that being said, we were talking pre-roll. There is a lot going on in this market, and I think I'm just going to let you two go back and forth. Jesse, starting with you, you went to an economic summit yesterday, basically Portland and Vancouver, Washington specific. So why don't you kind of go into what you learned, some key points of that, and then you and Addison can go back and forth on what we really expect here in the Portland, Vancouver markets.
Yeah, it's it's actually the second one I've been to in the last 2 weeks, just because I want to see what different people are saying, see if the message is, any continuity in the messaging, or if people are shooting from the hip. And it's really just the same. I'm getting the same message everywhere I go and listen to the professionals speak. And it's really interesting. This year has been absolutely insane for us. Like, we've set records on every single front. On the purchase side, sales side, everything. But next year they're projecting another 7% increase in house sales, which is crazy. Builders are submitting more permits for building, and our inventories at an absolute lowest inventory we've ever recorded in history. So I know we talk about this every week, but if you measure inventory based on months of supply, the way it looks is 4 months of inventory and below is a seller's market, 4 to 6 is a balance, and 6 and above is a buyer's market. And what that means is, if we have 1 month of inventory, which is where we're at right now, if we stop listing houses today based on the absorption rate, we would be out in 30 days. We talk about 1 month of inventory, that's total. That's not available inventory. I think we're sitting at about 0.5, half a month of available inventory. So those are houses that not under contract. So right now, pretty much anything that hits the market goes extremely fast. And I've also identified that, just because there's no inventory doesn't mean that people are dumb. They're not overpaying for properties, and what I mean by that is, yes, if they price it aggressively and there's multiple offers, the price gets bumped up. But we can always look and see what the fair market value is. Some people might price it a little bit low as a strategy to get more offers. But if people are overpricing their homes, people just let it sit there and fizzle, because they know that unless it's something really special and unique, they'll wait for the price to come down. So that's really, the what I've been hearing people talk about. The interesting thing, this is where Addison can chime in too, is, with mortgage forbearance, people keep saying to us, it's probably like 1 out of 10 people, but it's like that thorn in the side that drives me crazy. Is people saying that they're going to wait for the market collapse, and I've been hearing it for the last 8 years. Every year, the next year the market's going to collapse. And I look back in prices in 2012, and houses that were worth $200,000 are now worth $500,000. But it's not overinflated pricing based on fake money like it was when the last recession hit. And a lot of people might not know this, but recessions don't mean house pricing drops. A lot of people correlate recessions with that, because that's what drove the last recession, was the mortgage industry and the real estate industry. So if you look at the history of recessions, the last 3 out of 5, the mortgage value actually grew. And the 2 recessions that it did drop was the Depression, where the mortgage industry caused it, and the Great Depression. But it was in the Great Depression, it was only down a little bit. It wasn't crazy. So that's the real interesting thing. The government or the statisticians say that there's no correlation with the recession in the housing market. They have no reason why. They don't have any stats to prove what the difference is one way or the other, which I think is real interesting. But Jackson was telling us before this call that this recession or this pandemic has created an extra $1 trillion in wealth amongst homeowners, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of you out in the audience. I'm going to get this over to Addison next. Bunch of you out in the audience. First of all, if you're loving these videos about Portland, hit that like button real quick. It really helps us. And we are here for you guys every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time to answer any questions you have about Portland, moving here. And so make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss that thing. But put it in your calendars. Come ask us questions. Come join us live. Real quick, before I get to Addison, Jesse, we got a question. Is that 7% increase in sales in Portland or across the country as a whole?
Yeah, that's across the country as a whole. But in Portland actually, so I look at Portland right now, and Portland is actually up 6% in value and in sales. And I would have to look at the actual stats. I mean, our inventory is so low, I can't imagine. I'll look that up really quick and then get back to you on like what our actual growth is in volume. But in dollars, our value of homes have grown 5.6% in the last 30 days versus the last 30 days. So, and a lot of that's, the one thing I'll say is when you look at like back in like early indicators of like 2006 to 2008 before the market collapsed, every year after year, things were like growing at like 5%, then it would go up to 12% the next year. And it was very volatile with like really stair-step growths and drops. Ours has been very stable over the last like 6 years. It's been like 5% growth last year, 6% growth this year, and 5, 6. Those are very stable numbers. Last year our market was actually like right around the 1% growth, which is very interesting. So, this year it's been. I mean, nobody could have ever predicted what we were going to see this year. It's been absolutely probably the opposite of what everyone thought would happen.
I agree. A lot more of you out in the audience. If you are new, you don't know us, we're living in Portland, Oregon YouTube channel. We do all videos about what it's like to work, eat, sleep, live, play right here in Portland. So make sure you tap that subscribe button. All of you out there right now, give us a like. Addison.
But let me add something to that real quick, Jackson, is that, when we talk about our prices increase or growth in volume and whatnot. Okay, and Addison can tell me what the actual number is on this, but like say the market's gone up 6% and the house last year was worth 400, today it's worth 450. Our interest rate this year is 2% lower than it was last year. So last year I just locked in on a loan myself for 2.6, 30-year fixed, 5% down. That's insane. Last year it would have been 4.2. So Addison, like what's the savings and difference in those numbers? Like what does that mean to someone?
Yeah, just for some like basic chalk ups, you just try to use simple math. Like if you're borrowing $300,000, so the average mortgage balance right now in the United States is right around 240, 250. So that's an average from like the Midwest to the East Coast to the West Coast. But you're looking at a all-inclusive payment reduction of about $200 a month just based on interest rates dropping from early 2019 to where they are now. And not all interest rates are created equal too. So like some people have more down payment, higher credit scores, area plays a difference. You'll see slight variances in interest rates throughout the nation and the local markets. So keep that in mind. But as of yesterday, you're looking at a national average between 2.8 and 3.1, depending on your particular financing situation and area in the nation. But for 300,000 borrowed, just easily put your monthly payment's $200 less than it was if you bought the home in early 2019. So if you borrowed 600 grand, $400 savings. So those are massive impacts to the U.S. household monthly budget in a positive direction. And you just threw off a lot of really good stuff there, Jesse. I think to simplify it a little more, because a lot of people will probably combat the data with sub questions of like, what about this area? What about national averages? Here's something, an indicator that I like to use. The conventional loan limit that Freddie and Fannie set every year. It's the maximum allowed loan limits. And this is for every state in the United States. So 2019, 484,000. 2020, 510. So you saw a $26,000 jump up from 2019 to going into 2020. And they have recently announced 548. So we saw a $38,000 increase once again during a pandemic year and allowed borrowed. So that is a real indicator for me, regardless of a particular property or an area. They have increased the amount borrowed just based on average home prices and what it takes to get into a house once again. So I think that's a really neutralizing statement. If Freddie and Fannie, who issue all the money to the major investors for all the mortgages for the most part, still increases at a pace of 25 to 40 grand year over year, you're not going to be able to outpace appreciation and loan limits with your savings.
Right.
So that goes back to the foreclosure strategy, where a lot of people sit back, and it's not even a strategy. It's a fortune cookie hopeful approach, because you're not going to get those houses and you're not going to outsave appreciation for most people in the country.
Yeah, and adding to that, Addison, is the tough thing is for a lot of people is that people remember when they hear recession, the only thing they can remember is the one that happened in 2008. So they're like instantly thinking like, oh, foreclosure means an automatic discount, because you could get houses 2 for $1 back then, 2 for 1 specials. The thing is now the banks. I've helped so many clients try to buy bank-owned houses. We've never closed on one in this market. The thing is like the bank is not putting us in the same position that we were in 2008. They do not want that to happen. So they want to squeeze out every last dollar as possible. So if they list a house for $475 and they know they need to at least make $500,000, or they want to cover their costs, they'll wait, or they'll try to get multiple offers. Like, it's a freaking game with these banks, and it's not even worth going after them. It's absolutely if you want a really good deal on a house, I mean, you basically have to buy one that's been flooded, burnt, or some crazy scenario that I've never encountered.
Dead bodies in it.
Yeah. Go down to there's other markets that there's great values in. But going back to the question where somebody asked like what the Portland market was doing, is this year alone, and this is year-to-date stats, is our listings are down 6.7%, but pendings are up 7.5%. So that means that we have a 14% swing on the pendings, on that gap rate versus available inventory versus last year. So it's way more competitive. And then our closed sales are up 6.5%. So that's a massive, massive swing versus last year. And that's people, when you hear that 40% or 38% of people don't have a mortgage on their house, guess what they're doing when the pandemic hits? They're all hunkering down and they're staying put, and everyone's writing, and people are writing this out, waiting just to see what happens. Because if you don't have a mortgage, and say you're not making as much money this year as you were last year, so you're making more, now you're really starting to think like, where do I want to live? Do I really want to live here? Depending on what the business industry does in 2021, are they going to let people work remote? Businesses have been tested more than ever, and it's also, people are saying, hey, I'm seeing more production out of my employees because they're working from home. It's just going to be real interesting to see what the strategies are moving forward. They're at the economical summits, they're all saying, next year we'll probably move back more into a normal seasonal, real estate industry, but they think the back half will be just very aggressive. I mean, I already think we're in a super aggressive market, so I can't even imagine what next year looks like. I think we just need more inventory.
Yeah. I gotta just stop real quick. We got so many questions. I want to kind of do rapid fire with you, Jesse. And then there's a couple I can get to Addison as well. Again, a lot of you out in the audience. So, hey, this is your time every single Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific. So make sure you subscribe, put it in your calendars, come join us live for these Q&As. Ask us anything about certain areas. I have a great question coming up about certain areas. So whatever areas you've been doing research on, ask us about those. Our opinions will give you the full, honest truth. You know us. So real quick, Jesse, what area do you recommend for a young couple without kids relocating to Portland for a job downtown on Main Street? And what do you think, the housing market really will look like in the next 6 months, like May, June?
Yeah, that's
and
a
rental
young couple
market too.
Huh?
And the rental market too.
Oh, so the rental market in Portland is the craziest in the country. It has the strictest rental laws. The owners are very and Addison, you can answer that. He's a landlord. So we'll ask Addison about the rental thing. But going back to if I was a single couple, no kids, that's Addison as well. where you would live. The thing is if you're working downtown, that gives you a wide open slate of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was a couple with no kids, I'd want to live in that like lower southeast, like Richmond neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Lads. I think anything up and down Division when everything opens back up is an amazing place. I also think Nob Hill is an amazing place for entertainment, things to do. Or you get up into that northeast, Alberta neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give you everything that you want: walkability, restaurants, bars, entertainment, live music, even Mississippi Avenue. If you avoid the Red House.
I think the sneaky one is the sneaky one too is Slabtown.
Oh yeah,
Slabtown
yeah.
is
So
awesome.
that's if you're going if you want a rental, Slabtown's really good because it's all apartments up there. It was actually a opportunity zone area. So there's no condos for sale up there, but that butts right up next to Nob Hill. So yeah, if you want a good rental for it, pretty inexpensive, that would be the place that I would go. But if you're looking at house rentals, I mean, it's really competitive and people are really scared because if somebody moves in and they just decide they want to stop paying you rent because of the pandemic and everything, the tenants are really protected.
Yeah, Addy, if you want to touch on that kind of areas for people, and then also, with the rental market and housing market in 6 months.
Yeah, I jump in. Like, I think there's a lot of different factors. Like, if you don't have kids, it opens up all the quadrants because you're not dependent on the quality of school or the location of the school. A couple of hotter areas this year that I've seen a lot of spiked interest: the Woodstock area. So southeast, it puts you really close to a lot of the Laurelhurst area, which isn't really affordable for a lot of people for inventory levels, but you're really close to historical Woodstock, Division, Hawthorne. So you really immerse yourself with a lot of those key components and strips that people are attracted to in Portland. Love the Woodstock area. I think there's even a lot of opportunities in that 500 price range if you're looking to buy out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll continue to push out. And a lot of people like that area too because the lots were cut back in the 40s and 50s. So they're typically a little bit larger than some of the other smaller lots. So if you need that backyard, you want that detached garage to have a home office or convert to an ADU or have the mother-in-law suite, services a lot of really good opportunities. So the Woodstocks is a big one. Not a lot of people were talking Woodstock 5 years ago at all. Now it always comes up top 5 areas. So that's one I would put together. Obviously, I'm an over advocate for North Portland because that's my primary residence right now. But NoPo to St. John's, a lot of really cool spots. I still think appreciation levels haven't even come close to where they could be. And I'm seeing the city invest a lot of money this year into North Portland, sidewalks being repaved, conversions of old commercial buildings into mixed use. So you can just see the development of another microcosm Hawthorne, Division, Woodstock neighborhood coming in fruition. Another consideration, Multnomah Village, especially if you have to rent. I like Multnomah Village in the sense that it gives you really your halfway point between being downtown and then what maybe the inner suburbs might be. Right. It's got a cool like strip. You still get the vibe of like, okay, I've got restaurants and shops, but I'm less than 3 miles from downtown. So that would work really well for somebody working downtown. And there's obviously great public transportation right into the city from that point too.
Yep.
I love all those places you just noted. And the cool thing is even like Woodstock, when I was 18, 19 years old, which was crazy to think 20 years ago, it was very like run down, but like they've completely like it's right next to Eastmoreland. It's right by that Richmond neighborhood that I would just mention. So there are these little sneaky Foster Powell and all that. So it is like as those areas become more expensive, it is like the next logical neighborhood to like, and it has always been established. It's just been always kind of like older. So I think it is a really cool neighborhood, and obviously Multnomah Village I'm a huge fan of, and it's just really like what people want in their lifestyle, and they just need to get out and see it because it all lends like different unique values.
Totally, for sure. That leads me right into the next one for both of you guys. Sam says, and I think, hey, you're moving to Portland, Oregon for a reason, either because you've always wanted to in the pandemic, you can work from wherever, or you're getting that new job. So obviously figuring out the lifestyles first, but second of all, I think most people are interested, Jesse, what's the area that's going to appreciate the most in the next 5 to 10 years? But with how fast things are going, maybe in the next 1 year, but maybe, we'll talk about some of those areas that are really catching fire lately.
Yeah, if I was investing in Portland, the thing I would be looking for is, what's the urban renewal projects for the next, 5-10 years. Like Lentz Park actually was like one that the city was going to pile a lot of money into, and they got the pickles out there and whatnot. And we've gotten a couple clients' houses out there, and it's right off of 82nd Avenue, which isn't the greatest part of town. It's not nice, but it's not bad. It's really close to the airport. It's, by that Woodstock area we just mentioned, like 20, 30 blocks away. But, if I was really going to invest in a neighborhood, I would be looking for the cheapest, probably just most rundown part of town that I could, because sadly, the areas typically that increase the most are the ones that are the cheapest, unless there's real dire reasons not to buy there. Like obviously if it's like a floodplain, or I'm talking like, what is it, Port Vancouver, like I'm talking like up in North Portland, like up by the industrial, like right. Nothing's ever going to happen up there. That's what I would be looking for personally. I don't know what Addison's thoughts are on what he'd be doing, but
yeah, I think it's tough when everyone asks like, what are appreciation opportunities for next year? You got to understand 2021 is going to be an interesting thing. So with real estate, I'm never looking at like, how can I gain the most amount of value in the next 90 days? Like you got to look a little bit bigger picture, but some of the shifts you might see is maybe those really high priced homes off of Hawthorne and Division might not see as much of a spike, just because it's going to take a little bit for restaurants and retail to reestablish kind of a new flow in the new economy, if you will. So big opportunity chasers I see, just generally speaking, zooming out on Google Maps, Milwaukee, Gladstone, which is just on the outer cusp of the Portland region, but I'm seeing an uptick in that 400 range mark, low to mid 400 budget. A lot of people that's a last resort option from an affordability standpoint for some families. That's another one, Jesse, like 20 years ago, like, holy crap, no one wanted to go down that, like off McLaughlin, and it was just like used car central and maybe a few restaurants. That was it. And now you're seeing huge growth. You see the Max line continue out there, which serves to, you guys have an awesome video on the Milwaukee area. I highly suggest checking that one out. But Woodstock, I still think that'll continue to uptick. North Portland, it hasn't caught up with average home prices around the Portland area, but you got to be really careful and work with people that understand these areas, because you can find yourself in a bad quadrant and thinking it's a great deal. And we're in a market right now, Jesse, and disagree with me if you want, but if you look at something and it's underpriced, there's a reason. It's either intentionally underpriced or there's a locational or safety issue. Like that's kind of where we're at. Like,
there's and when Addison talks about that, anything under, if you get in a real aggressive price point, say like under 400, you're always gonna have a buyer for that. So, it is just looking at the futures and like, where are they building? What are, Milwaukee and Gladstone, man, like I always, when someone tells me like, hey, I want to be in a little bit of suburb area, very affordable, but 20 minutes to downtown, like that's always the neighborhood that I'm trying to point them into, is that Milwaukee area, because you can be into like that Richmond Division area in like 10 minutes. And I think that's really cool. It's about like just your lifestyle. Hey man, let's know what you want and what you want to do. And, and a lot of people that look into Southeast and Northeast, it's so competitive in there. So if you're not like, if you're looking at a $400,000 price point or budget you want to stay under, I mean, you got to be looking at houses at 350, because there's gonna be multiple offers. And then usually as, if people lose a couple offers, or then they're like, all right, well now maybe I can move out a little bit further. So that's when they start looking in that Milwaukee area, where they can still have that lifestyle 10, 15 minutes away. The cool thing is they just built the Max line off of 99. So that's or McLaughlin. So you can get right off of like lower Southeast, like between Selwood and Eastmoreland, there's like an overpass that goes over from connects Eastmoreland to Selwood, and in the middle of that overpass bridge, there's a stairs or an elevator that go down. You can get on the max line, and that'll take you right into Richmond and Ladd's Eastmoreland area, which is really cool. Or it'll take you all the way down to downtown if you have a job down there.
Well, and just a real quick one, Jackson, because I know you got a ton of questions and whatnot. An example from Sunday, Milwaukee listing, 3-2 conversion updated, really beautiful home listed at $399,900, so very, very reasonable. It got 17 offers and the winning bid was $426. Us buyers paying all their own closing costs. So $26K over, you're getting to 1.5, like 18, 17 offers. It's pretty aggressive in that price point. So you got to adjust the way that you're looking at budgets based on your kind of bracket that works for you.
Well, and with that, you know, and that's the thing that we also need to talk about is this is one of the craziest markets we've seen. And, you know, Jesse, us and the team, we've equipped ourselves to help with relocation. That's one thing that we've done over 100 times now. And you have to be ready for the relocation process because you can't just kind of show up, see a house, and then go get approved or pre-approved and try and get into that house. So number one, when you're coming from out of state and there's 17 bids there and 15 of them are from local people, that listing agent is going to, you know, show the clients that. So there's just a lot that goes into these. So Addison, who's on this call right now, he's calling in favor for you. You know, Jesse, our whole team, we go to bat for this whole relocation process because it's not easy. So that is one thing I just want to interrupt real quick. You know, our information, phone number, text, email, everything is down in the description below. Just shoot us a text, email, days, nights, weekends. If you are moving here, your questions, anything you have. And with that, if you are new, you're just catching us live, this is what we do. We answer all questions and we help you with your move, your relocation here to the Portland Metro. So if it's your first time, make sure you tap that subscribe button, click the bell so you're notified every time we go live and do a new video. And the next question is one that we get constantly because we work both in Vancouver and we work in Washington or Portland. Jesse, is it better to live in Portland and work in Vancouver when it comes to paying less taxes?
No, that's the worst case scenario.
Right. And you can't do it vice versa either way, right?
Yeah, it's not as and honestly, like the best case scenario is like live in Washington, work in Washington. Or you can, you know, if you were to like even work in Oregon and live in Washington, you are going to get a better value. Like Washington just has more affordable living. And the thing is, and there's a lot more opportunity up in the Vancouver market. In my opinion, it's a little bit behind Portland as far as like numbers look,
right?
But it is still a hot market up there. And what the people don't understand is Vancouver is literally one river difference between Portland and Vancouver, but it seems like a whole world away.
Yeah.
People fly into the airport and you can see Vancouver right there when you land. So that's why we're dually licensed, because a lot of people go over there and look. Some people love it, some people don't love it. But what they do love is they can be in a school district that has all three schools ranking 10s in Camas, be 20 minutes from the airport, and they're getting a brand new construction house for $500,000.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and just because that question comes up all the time, just to clarify for everybody out there, if you live in Washington and work in Oregon, you can't bypass the Oregon state taxes, right? Because there is no income tax in Washington, and people think that you can kind of bypass the system that way.
Yeah, and even if you work in live in Oregon and work in Washington, they still make you pay the state income tax. It's crazy. So even when we sell houses in Washington, we're still paying the state income tax. It's you know, every state is greedy. Sadly, I mean, everybody wants theirs.
Right.
So you know, it's really it's at the end of the day, like, you know, obviously consult your CPA, build a strategy that's long term. You know, as everyone gets smarter and everyone, you know, figures out every loophole, you know, the government's right there to combat that, as we know.
Yeah. Next question here. Addie, I know this one kind of hits you in the heart a little bit. Hey guys, do you guys have experience working with military and government moves? I know we have. We definitely have.
Yeah, lots of VA loans, particularly this year. We absolutely love supporting our veterans. It's an incredible privilege. In a program that they've earned, quite certainly. So you have access to a zero down loan program without mortgage insurance, with sub average interest rates, so much lower than your normal conventional interest rate. You really do need a team that knows how to work VA loans, because there's a lot of components on the back end, and there's a lot of misperceptions within the real estate side of it. So a seller doesn't really know how that loan program works, and they just see an offer with zero down, and they automatically default to a lot of assumptions. So that's where, like, Jesse, Listy, Jessica, myself, we're all reaching out and we're educating the sellers on how the program works. And we've got a lot of strategies to get you in contract on that VA. Additionally, there's a lot more logistics with veterans. They're typically being relocated to a new station. They've got a lot of questions about how their compensation package looks and what they could get approved for. And it's a very dynamic loan program with lots of flexibility. So hopefully I answered that.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, I think we've worked with, oh my gosh, so many VA loans, and a lot of agents actually out there don't even like want to touch the VA loans like as a purchase or a sale, because there's a lot of old bad like connotation around it. Personally, we know it's like one of the strongest loans out there, and even if you do zero down, a lot of people might be like, oh well, the buyer doesn't have any skin in the game or whatever it may be. We still have strategies to work with those buyers on how to still show the seller that we have skin in the game. We have funds. Even if you don't have funds, it's perfectly fine. We just need to see your situation. Let us build the best case moving forward, to help you get a home accepted. But it is an amazing loan program. And, we have like tons of great reviews from our clients that we've worked on VA loans with. And it isn't just like, veteran in the military. I mean, like we have a FBI, CIA, every sort of government office and official we've worked with, which is really cool.
Yep. I'll fire off one more question because we got a lot of them to get to. Best area on the west side for single, no kids, and a detached home, max budget $675K.
I mean, probably the Pearl District.
West side.
Yeah. He's like 100 yards on the west side.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I would say probably Multnomah Village.
I was kind of going towards that too.
Yeah, that puts you right there, Multnomah Village. And it kind of depends what you're going to do with the property. Do you want to keep it for 3 years and then rent it out? Because then you've got another layer of considerations, like what's my rentability post converting this from a primary to an investment. But lifestyle. I love that. Even right on the border of Beaverton and Portland on the west side, like, that's a really good spot, because no matter what you decide to do, if you want to rent it out, there's always a demand for people on the west side because of Nike, Intel, and all the tech. So I really love kind of that's right on the border of Portland and Beaverton. Anything on that edge, you're in a different county, not Multnomah County. It's actually Washington County, which has a more favorable tax structure for investors, because there's lower property taxes. You're not held to Multnomah County laws. So I kind of like that for the long term, But Multnomah Village is nice, just a little more expensive.
Yeah, and on that, Addison, it's funny. Sam asks us, Addison, do you own your rental inside or outside of Multnomah County? So maybe kind of pros, cons of that. Washington County, Multnomah, and answer the question.
Yeah, it's kind of just what I said. So ours was our first home ever. It was actually a condo, 3-2, 1620, purchased five and a half years ago. We got it for $216, which is kind of hilarious. The last unit in that building, I think, sold for $360, so quite a bit in equity in half a decade. We currently rent it out for $2,100 a month.
Jeez.
And it's right on the border of Beaverton Hillsdale Highway near Jesuit High School, which a lot of families are familiar with that private school here.
Yep.
But right smack dab in the middle of downtown Portland and Beaverton. So it really works well for anyone that might need to work downtown or might need to go out to the tech sector or Nike sector. The difference is lower property taxes in Washington. So it's actually a Portland address, but it's in Washington County. Don't get confused, not Washington State, Washington County. And there's some flexibilities more with like kind of tenant laws that are a little bit dynamic between Multnomah and Washington County. Portland, Multnomah County really protects the renters. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you know, and to talk about the Portland address in a Washington County situation, that's actually like one of the best scenarios you can get, especially if you're like wanting to move out to the west side and you work at Nike or Intel. You might be one street over from being in Multnomah County versus Washington County, and it could be like a massive tax savings.
Huge.
And mention real quick, and we have one more question I'm gonna get to you guys about this kind of, but the short-term rental market, Jesse, Multnomah County versus Washington County.
Yeah, everything's day by day, and they consistently keep changing it. We work very closely with a short-term investment company that knows every rule, every regulation. They actually sit on the board of the short-term industry here in Portland. The thing is since COVID hit, our short-term industry has really taken a massive hit. I would not. Everyone's converting or selling their stuff, and I would not. Since the value hasn't dropped in homes, I would not be looking at getting into the short-term industry in Portland right now.
Well, and all the short-term people too are like starting to convert to long-term. Like,
yeah.
We just had like a client that's relocating here, and they were able to lock down an Airbnb for 3 months.
Wow.
Like they just called and like, we need somewhere to stay for a few months because we want to explore Camas, Vancouver, Woodstock, West Side, and this is their timeline, and they got 90 days within lockdown and a half-hour call.
Yeah, and that's something that Jesse always talks about too. You know, if you're moving, relocating here, and you're not going to buy that house right away, you know, the Airbnbs, the VRBOs, just call those people personally. And have that conversation. Hey, I need a place for 3 months, 4 months, you know, and negotiate your monthly cost. Then you can get into a home. So,
yeah. Well, back in that now, Airbnb has got smart, and they actually added a long-term tab to their site.
Well, with that, you guys are both on here. Jonathan asks, gentlemen, any thoughts or advice for someone wanting to house hack a multi-family within this year in the Portland Metro? Do the numbers usually work to break even or have some cash flow? Thanks in advance.
It's all going to be a case-by-case scenario. And quite honestly, you know, if I was wanting to house hack and I was looking at this scenario, I think it's probably one of the most brilliant things you can do. But if you're looking at, say, a duplex and say it's $450,000, $500,000, I mean, you're probably going to get maybe $2,200 if it's a 3-2 on one side, if you're at the most, depending on the location. But say it's $500,000, 3-2, you're getting $2,200. I mean, that's going to cover a majority amount of your mortgage, but it's rarely going to cash flow. And that's the thing that's really tough with Portland now is the opportunities to cash flow these residencies. So that's why you're seeing a lot more people go into like the triplexes and fourplexes and things like that. If you go above that, you're getting into commercial financing. And if you have more money down, obviously it's going to change your lending terms and whatnot. But I think it's a great opportunity. A lot of people try doing it. Typically people look into it, start wanting to do it, and then they just bail on the idea. But Addison knows as the lender, what are you seeing in these situations from your stance?
Yeah, I think multifamily is really hard to reach for most young investors, people trying to get into the game, because it's just over $1 million and 25% down minimum. That's all really hard on the multifamily, super, super competitive. What I've seen from a more realistic house hack situation, a lot of people, I've seen some really crafty moves out by Nike and Intel where they're buying a house with a lot of rooms and they're doing the old roommate situation, like an under the table. And it actually is very, you can cash flow on it, but it protects you because you're not dependent on just one person in the house. You kind of diversify your renters. I've seen some garage conversions. a lot of people still who might be going out to Nike, Intel, Tech, and they've got a 1-year contract and they're not fully employed and they just need a room. They're not looking to buy a house. There's a lot of demand in that situation. So that's what I would do. Say you have a lower budget, look for a townhome with a super low HOA, great location that's maybe not too far away from any of these major employers on the west side, and rent out the rooms, convert that garage. I've seen it.
Yep.
Crazy possibilities if you're open to the lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the market right now, and dude, there's like 10 multifamilies in the Portland metro on the market. It's
10.
just like, it's non-existent, dude.
10.
And they're all expensive. I mean, they're all like, and this is like the west side, they're all like $500,000 to $3.2 million. And there's no way you would ever cash flow it. And that's the problem. If your goal is to cash flow, I would say that your strategy is going to be blown up unless you bring in a lot of people. But if your goal is like, hey, I'm going to offset my mortgage by a substantial amount, because if you buy a single family home and you're paying $2,500 a month in mortgage versus getting a duplex and say you're paying $1,500 in mortgage because the other side offsets the difference, you're still winning in that scenario.
Right. No, and that's a good point. Yeah, Jonathan or anybody else interested in that, because this Portland market is on fire, and for the foreseeable future, we actually, that economic forecast, we went to it last year, and they were saying this city could. He was saying something like it could hold or withstand another 700,000 people moving here. So just incredible numbers of people moving and relocating all over to the Northwest. And that's what we do. We help with your move, your relocation here to Portland, to Vancouver. Our numbers, our email, everything is down below. So whether it's investing or just finding that forever home, whatever it is, make sure you are shooting us an email, text, days, nights, weekends. We got your back when moving here. So Addie, I'll kick this one to you too. It's about renting, but I think we'll cover both renting and purchasing. And Tasha talks about are people renting to customers with a low work history, i.e. a job less than a month. So one, the rental thing, if you know anything about that, but two, on the purchasing of a home with a new job here, what does that look like?
So in terms of renting a place, it's going to be a case by case. All I know is really, if it's not a company like a property manager, it's just like me. We have an app that we use. It does a background check. And then it's really the landlord's call. Like, oh, do I feel comfortable with the stability of the employment?
Yep.
But property management companies and complexes might have stricter restrictions, I guess, for lack of a better word there. I would say credit probably plays a bigger role in that situation as a rental. If you've got really crappy credit, you might need a cosigner or an extra deposit. They might ask for 2 months deposits instead of 1 or something like that. In regards to mortgage lending and getting approved, there's actually a lot more flexibility on the job history than one would think. For example, if you went to school, college, got certified for your line of work, in a lot of different cases, we can string that together and count the educational piece as work history on your mortgage application, which is really common for, say, trade workers, plumbers, nurses, frontline people. That's really common. Same with veterans. But it's really about stability. So you got to look at it as someone's lending you like $250,000, $500,000. What's going to make them feel confident? If you were like the CEO of a tech company and then decided to be a barista during a pandemic, not a great story to tell to the underwriter. Like, that's going to be hard to string together.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to make light of the situation, just to be sensitive, but it's got to make sense to the investor. That's always a great exercise mentally.
Yep, I agree. Jesse, I got one for you here. The question comes in, and I didn't know this currently was happening. Jesse, is it normal for there to be nothing under $500,000 in Sherwood, or is it just the time of the year?
There's nothing. I had to do that the other day with a client. I tried to pull up the example. I was like, oh, there's nothing right now.
Which is crazy because, all those videos Jesse and I did, that was an area. Hey, if you want to be 45 minutes outside of Portland, this was, probably 6-8 months ago now, maybe. That was kind of the area where you could really stretch that dollar. And we were looking at those homes, and Jesse's like, yeah, like here's a 4-bedroom house right here, or whatever, 4 or 5 for like 400 and something thousand. You know, it's 45 minutes from downtown, but Sherwood's a killer little community. It's going to have the biggest high school in the state of Oregon. So yeah, it's these little rural areas, these suburbs are the ones that are really starting to go.
Yeah, so like it's funny because like that's like just exactly what I said at the beginning of this. Like
Right.
with the way that jobs are becoming more relocatable or remote, is people are now if you're say living in a $1.2 million house downtown, you're like, man, I'm just gonna move out to the suburbs and buy something for 600,000. I mean, even Robert Hershevek was at our conference last week, and he's like, dude, I lived in Hollywood. He's like, my house was $8 million, and he's like, now I'm moving 40 miles outside of the city because I never have to go into the city anymore, and I'm buying a house for $2 million. Like, it's crazy. The thing is I just looked at the map. There's one house in Sherwood for 480 right now. It's brand new as of 15 minutes, so let's get it. No, dude,
Yeah,
it's a
Lisa, reach out. We will get it locked up.
Outdated. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 600 square foot, dated for freaking 480. And I'm like, but no, like this time of year right now in December
Yeah.
is historically like, some of the lowest inventories that we ever see for the year. So I would say like moving into typically people say the selling season starts like the weekend after Super Bowl. Obviously we're in a pandemic this year. It's a whole nother situation. So I would say that, yeah, in a couple of months we should see more inventory. But if I was somebody wanting to sell a house right now, or if I was like looking to sell my house in Sherwood specifically, I would be putting it on the market tomorrow, because with no inventory, it's a fantastic time to sell, as Jackson knows when we sold his house.
Right.
So, that's not normal. I would say that there's going to be more inventory out there in this foreseeable future. They're also building there's going to be a ton of new construction out that way.
Yeah.
Heading towards the north, like towards Hillsboro, so that South Hillsboro expansion is going all the way from Hillsboro to Sherwood.
Yep. So on the map, is that like 99 to the north then?
Yeah, it's basically
By the high school?
as you see, like, yeah, it's like basically like all the way up like Roy Rogers Road, like all the way to the north.
Exactly. Yeah, Sherwood.
Through the mountain.
So, I mean, obviously it's location specific, but we are seeing it. Like the west side out, my areas, the Beavertons and stuff, just nothing stays on the market, period. It's just gone within seconds, within minutes. So with this pandemic and kind of they're calling this the great relocation. I mean, 8 times more people are going to be moving and purchasing homes this year coming up, 2021, than any other year in the history of the United States. So are the suburbs going to start seeing it, the biggest hit, I guess? And I don't know if it's called a hit, but like the most action.
Oh, you mean like for competition?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the suburbs will definitely be and it's all relative to, there's always going to be a desire to live downtown, or down in the lower southeast, northeast area, because there's so much to do. But like I was saying, in the relocatable areas and people wanting to live a little bit further out because they want more space, bigger homes, things like that. Yeah, the suburbs are going to start cranking up on competition. Like, and it's already very competitive. As you can see, dude, there's one house in freaking Sherwood.
Yeah,
like,
that's nuts.
When have you ever seen that?
Well, and people are looking at their homes totally different now too, Jesse. Like they need home offices. They now want the separation between school, work, and life. So it's kind of interesting because just years ago it was all about the downsize trend. Like people were trying to convince less is more, tiny this. And now it's like, man, I need more work. I need somewhere to do a Zoom call for both me and my spouse. I need my kids to be able to do this. So they are wanting more space.
Oh, yep. I agree. And it's tough for people so try and put yourself into the mindset, Jesse, of someone moving, relocating here, and they're seeing these prices and they're seeing it's so competitive. And it's probably scary for them. Should I actually be buying right now? Like, I guess try and put yourself into their shoes, like, and what you would do right now if you were,
Yeah. So here's the interesting statistic, like for us is like, and I'm seeing this in Portland, like our 100% of our business is I should say 95% of our business is helping people that are watching right now relocate. So we are experts in this. We've closed 60 plus homes this year, and it's all been through the same exact process. So if your desire is to get into a house, and let us do our job and get you the home, we can make it as seamless as possible and make it stress-free for the client based on our proven track record, our statistics, how we know how to approach the situation. So like I was talking about the interest rate at the beginning of this, and this is something I want Addison to like consistently talk about is, say a house was 400,000 last year, 500,000 this year, based on the interest rate, your mortgage should relatively be about the same. And it's just one of those things is you should only buy a house when you're ready to buy a house. So if you're in a position where you're like, oh, I don't really want to buy a house, don't buy the house. If you're in a position where I really want a house, I want to take advantage of great interest rates, all that, let us help you and let us make the process seamless, because at the end of the day, it's all about preparing yourself to make the purchase when you're ready. So just that's what I try to explain is, hey guys, this has to be a comfortable situation. Like there's never a time that you'll ever be forced to buy a house or, you're missing out, this and that. Like we're just in a very different situation right now. So we have to go with the ebbs and flows of the market.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're waiting for, if you're sitting back and this is what happens is people now are saying, damn, I wish I would have bought last year. People last year, like, damn, I wish I'd have bought the year before.
Yeah.
It's the same thing I hear every year. And so if you think you're waiting till next year to get a discount or less price, this and that, I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen. Prices are going to grow. Interest rates are going to go up a little bit. And you're going to be in a way worse position in 6 months than you are today. And you're going to be kicking yourself.
Yep.
So.
It's a really, really good point. And just to throw the financing spin on it, it's like a lot of people, what's going to happen in the next 6 months with home values? Really, they're going to stay consistent and on the uptick. The supply and demand's not going to change.
Right.
But to Jesse's point, I do strongly predict interest rates will slightly creep up throughout the year. It happens almost every year, but as the vaccine hits in, as companies start adapting to a new economy, service and retail open up again, you'll see money move over to future investments rather than more mortgage-backed securities or bonds, conservative investments, which are holding down interest rates. Now, it's nothing to freak out about, but it could be the difference between $100 and $125 a month on your payment, which is a bigger variable than trying to outsave appreciation or get a deal.
Right. No, I agree. We're coming up on our 12 o'clock hard stop. We appreciate everybody who came in today and asked these questions. That's what it is. And there's no question, you guys can ask whether it's about certain areas that's going to fit your lifestyle. These questions about, should I be buying now? Should I be investing? How to invest? There's nothing that we haven't helped clients do. As just this year alone, we've helped over 60 families or clients move and relocate to Vancouver and to Portland. It is a process. There are systems, and we've got it down. We've got it nailed, and it's this whole team that we've built, including Addison, to go to bat for you. So that is one thing that we pride ourselves on is the top relocation team. If you are moving, relocating anywhere in the Portland Metro, our number, email, everything's down in the description. Call us, text us, day, nights, weekends. We have Zoom calls with you. We go over this process. All you got to do is worry about getting here. One more. We got a couple minutes, Addy, and I know we just hit the hot topic, but, are there indications that interest rates are primed to rise soon? I know you just talked about it, but maybe reiterate that a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say one thing you got to understand, and there was a new thing on Mortgage News Daily this morning, where the feds aren't planning to raise interest rates. A huge misperception from the home buyer or soon-to-be homeowner is they think that the feds set mortgage interest rates. They do not. They set the interest rates for businesses and accessibility to finance to fuel economy, which then you're a few steps away by the time it hits the mortgage industry, the consumer. So I think there's still a supply and demand, a lot of people refinancing and purchasing. So it's not as like, oh, we need to have crazy low interest rates. There's actually not enough mortgage professionals right now, from the operation side to advisors, to process the amount of business.
Right.
So a lot of times you'll see even mortgage companies slightly raise their interest rate to throttle back the amount of volume coming in. But I would say, like I just noted, as the economy moves once again into a more future, retail opens up, businesses open up, tech sectors, startups, people will invest their money and move out from conservative mortgage-backed securities and bonds, which you might see a slight uptick. But I will conclude with this statement. I think the current or the upcoming presidential team, the election, the shift in the guard, if you will, I think we're going to be in a 12 months. Let's have the least amount of turbulence possible. I think that's going to be the mode for the country from a political standpoint for the next 12 months. So I wouldn't see any of these huge swings. Like we're talking maybe 0.1, 0.2 little shifts in the interest rate, but nothing to worry, like go crazy about.
Perfect. Love it. I think that kind of rounds us up for this edition. Every single Thursday, kick me off. Every single Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, we are going to be going live answering any questions that you have. So make sure you do tap that subscribe button. Click the bell so you're notified every time we do a new video and every time that we go live. And our number, our information, everything is down below. We've mastered the process of relocation for both Washington and Oregon. So, make sure you're reaching out. Give us those phone calls. If you're catching us not live, you're catching us after the live event. Again, we're live every single Thursday. So with that being said, guys, we appreciate everybody being here today and the questions. Join us next Thursday, same time, same place. And it's not, let's see. Yeah. Trying to see when the holidays are. Anyways, with that being said, guys, we appreciate everybody being here today. And until our next video, we'll catch you later.
See ya.